everybody. First of all, I just want to say thank you all for being here. I'm going to try really hard not to cry, but please just bear with me if I do. I think Jeremy would have been really impressed that so many people showed up. I didn't even know he knew this many people. So I'm really, really grateful. It does my heart a lot of good to see all of you here. I think he really would have enjoyed today. The weather's perfect. We have all his favorite foods. I hope you got to enjoy the pizza and the fries and the wings. And then, of course, it would not be an event related to Jeremy if we didn't have beer. So I hope you grabbed yourself a koozie and had a beer on me. We're going to have a few people come up and just kind of talk about Jeremy a little bit. And when we're done, we'll open it up. And if you have any stories or memories that you would like to share about Jeremy, I would definitely love for you to come up and do so. I know public speaking is not everybody's cup of tea. It's not mine either. I'm shaking like a leaf up here. My number one fear is always that Jeremy was going to be forgotten. And so if you share your stories, I know he's not. So, okay. So I'm literally just going to read this. So again, when we're all done, I hope that a few of you will come up here and share stories. But again, I know public speaking is not everybody's cup of tea. So if you're not comfortable or whatever, please feel free to stop by. Share your story with me. Share your story with Austin or with Madison or with our family. It would be awesome. They say only the good die young. And this must be true because Jeremy was good. He was a good man, a good son, a good brother, a good father, and a good husband. Honestly, better than good. Jeremy and I met in 1996 when he came to my mom's house to clean the carpets. And the very first thing he did was insult me by saying that I didn't look old enough for him to come in the house by himself. So luckily for both of us, I forgave him that insult. And, life with Jeremy moved fast. I met his mom and his brother on our first date. And on our second date, he met my mom, and he told her that he was going to marry me. Life with Jeremy was fast. And even though it was fast, it always felt like it was meant to be. Like, I never questioned any of the decisions that we made, and I never questioned his commitment. Jeremy was a big personality. I think you all could agree. He was authentically and unapologetically himself. No pretense, no airs. He said what he meant, and he meant what he said. He was also a bit on the cocky side. You either liked him or you didn't, and he was fine either way. And he was always in a hurry to get somewhere, a hurry to get something done. He was just always on the move. There wasn't really much that Jeremy didn't like, but he didn't like clowns or birds. I see you guys knew this about him. He didn't like slow drivers in the fast lane. Like, semi-trucks just do not belong there at all. He really hated tuna. Like, the theatrics, if you opened a can of tuna in the house, he should have won, an Oscar with the gagging and the holding of the nose. It was crazy. He didn't like leftovers or casseroles, so I had to do a lot of cooking. He was an old school banker, right? Most of you guys know him. He was in banking for basically his whole career. And so he did not like when people didn't cash checks timely. He religiously balanced our checkbook to the penny every month. And if he wrote you a check and you had not cashed it yet, it's like a capital offense with him. It just was not cool. And also, if you went to the bank and got cash, all of those bills better be facing the same direction. It's unacceptable if they weren't. And if you knew anything about Jeremy, you knew that he hated the cold. Absolutely hated it. There was nothing worse in his mind than having to wear sweats and a long sleeve shirt and, heaven forbid, socks. Did not like that at all. He also did not like public speaking, so he would definitely not be up here today. In his last job, he had to present on like video team calls. And since he didn't really want to do it, he decided to pull a very Jeremy stunt. And he started the meeting with dad jokes. We were in Fredericksburg, and he literally bought an entire book of dad jokes so he could tell them during the calls. And again, very Jeremy thing to do. Since he didn't really want to be on camera, he decided to put on a luchador mask, and he did the whole meeting in his luchador mask. This is long, y'all, just so you know. Thanks for bearing with me. It's hard to squeeze 28 years into just a few minutes. Jeremy was much more about love. He loved his truck. He loved his dog. He loved watching his kids play ball. And he loved food, pizza, wings, and fries. He loved beer, and he loved bourbon. We didn't do bourbon today, sorry. He loved going out and listening to live music, and he loved Louisiana. He never missed an opportunity to load up our car with Louisiana-branded beers every time we went to go see his dad. We had to make like special space in the trunk for all the beer he was going to bring back. I don't know if you looked at the memory table today, but Abita was one of his favorite brands of beer. And his dad brought us the holder for the Boot, one of his favorite Louisiana beers. And we also have his luchador mask if you didn't have the privilege of seeing it on his team call. Jeremy loved LSU, he loved the Saints, and he loved the UFC. The UFC was like a passion project for him. When we first got married, we were so broke, but somehow we always had money to get a UFC pay-per-view. He loved watching the events when Austin was away in college. They'd be texting each other like all about how the events were going and who was going to win, and did you see that? And he loved doing that. He really knew a lot about the UFC. I always felt like he could have been a great commentator for them. I encouraged him to apply, but he never did it. And a few years ago, Austin and Jeremy actually got to go to a UFC event together, and it was such a highlight for him. He enjoyed that so much. As you know, Jeremy loved his baseball hats, his Hey Dudes, and his Pearl Snap shirts. So I saw several people wearing Pearl Snap shirts today. Thank you so much. I love it. And all Jeremy ever wanted to do was have a good time. He wanted everyone around him to have a good time. Through his whole life, he maintained like the heart and the joy of a child, and I think that's what made him so fun to be around. You may not know this, but he was the best grilled cheese maker. Like seriously, made the best grilled cheese, right? I think he perfected his craft when he was a kid. He used to tell stories about how he would make grilled cheese sandwiches and he would sell them to the neighborhood kids. And then, but then he would take that money and he'd go buy himself a cheeseburger, so. He had so many unique talents. He was also the master of chopping up hamburger meat. Like, that man could chop hamburger meat to like Taco Bell quality. The tiniest little pieces. It was amazing. And when we first got married, we had this one spatula that he always used to chop up the hamburger meat. 20 plus years he used this spatula to chop up hamburger meat. And one day it finally broke, and he was devastated. We bought like 5 or 6 spatulas before he found a suitable replacement. He was very particular. If you didn't know, Jeremy's favorite movie was Urban Cowboy, and he did a spot-on Kip impersonation from Napoleon Dynamite. Obviously, he had very questionable taste in movies, but his music taste was also very eclectic, like pretty much everything. If you were in here and you heard the playlist we had going, you would have heard rap, you would have heard pop, you would have heard country, just like he was all over the place. He loved basically everything. One of his favorite things was the Drew and Jeremy Brew Tour. So my brother Andrew and his wife Danielle, the 4 of us would get together and go visit craft breweries and collect pint glasses as souvenirs. But he didn't start out that way. He actually, when the kids were little, was sent to Seattle for work. And he got introduced to craft breweries there, and he loved it. And it became kind of, again, another like passion project for him. But he was also very weird because his favorite beers were IPAs, and nobody likes IPAs. Jeremy used to say that the best beer was free beer, and the only bad beer was hot beer. And I actually did find it funny. In almost 28 years, there was only ever one beer that Jeremy had that he said he would never have again. Everything else was fair game. He was always ready to have a good time and had a koozie in each pocket. More than anything else, Jeremy loved his family. He called his parents each week to check in. Me and our kids were his world. He and I would often talk about how lucky we were because not only did we love our kids, but we genuinely liked our kids and had a great time hanging out. He was so proud of the kids' accomplishments on and off the field. He just loved Madison and Austin so much. Jeremy was our protector. I never feared for my safety when he was around. I used to tease him about how he was going to have to fight somebody one day because I was going to run my mouth and get in trouble, and he was going to have to save me. That protectiveness extended to his friends as well. The last concert we went with his friend Johanna and her sister Madison. And Johanna's Madison is basically the same age as our Madison. And we had a table at the concert, but Madison wanted to go down closer to the stage and like dance and sing and whatever. But Jeremy didn't feel like it was safe. So he went with her, and just like the child at heart that he was, they were both down there just like jumping around like they were teenagers and singing at the top of their lungs. It was definitely a sight to see, but he would always, always protect those that he was with. Jeremy was a provider and a fixer. If you told him that you needed something, he would get it for you. And if you had a problem, his first instinct was to fix it. He was also very thoughtful. There was never a time that he went out to get something for himself that he didn't come back with something for us. You know, he'd go to the store for beer and he'd come back with candy for me. He was the bug killer, the getter of things on the top shelf, the trash taker outer, and the driver on long road trips. He was a man who opened doors, walked on the outside of the sidewalk, and pumped my gas, because that's what gentlemen do. Jeremy was our safe harbor, our shelter from the storm, and the #1 fan of Team Lejeune. He was there to celebrate every victory and lessen the sting of every defeat. And he never stopped believing in us. And Jeremy was a promise keeper. For almost 28 years, I was his, and he was mine. For better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death did us part. And there will always be a Louisiana-shaped hole in my heart. So, please join me in a toast to Jeremy.
Before I begin, I want to thank all of you for coming out today. To be honest, I'm a little starstruck, knowing that this many people cared and loved for my father as we did, and I just want to thank y'all for showing up. Your presence today shows that my father made an impact on your life, and that you valued him as a friend, brother, coworker, and much more. As I reflect on my dad's life and the 22 years we shared together, I can't help but highlight all of his greatest qualities and values. My dad was a man of morals. He valued honesty, integrity, accountability, and the most important, loyalty. His character exemplified each one of these values, and he instilled them into Madison and I at a young age. He taught us to tell the truth, regardless if it's hard, because if you lie, you're going to get in more trouble. To do the right thing, regardless if anyone's watching you. To own up to your mistakes, even if it's a hard pill to swallow. And lastly, to show up and be there for your loved ones, despite how big or small the occasion might be. All of these values are just part of the reason why my dad was a great man of character. But at the top of his list, what he truly valued the most in life was family. He was hardworking, selfless, loving, and thoughtful, and there was no limit he wouldn't go to for his family. He always made sure we were protected and safe. Little things like going with Mom to Walmart at night, that way she wasn't alone. Making us download Life 360 so we had each other's location in case anything ever happens. Or even much more serious situations, like when Dad and Mom had to drive up to Austin at 5 in the morning because Madison's apartment had gotten broken into. My dad was incredibly thoughtful and by far one of the most creative gift givers that I had ever known. It was a very special quality about him, and it spoke volume about his selflessness. Every time I'd return home from college, he always had a new shirt or new hat that he thought I'd like that he had gotten me. That, or he'd greet me at the door with a Texas craft beer. He was always searching for an excuse to go out of his way for someone else. My dad always kept us on our toes growing up, and it seemed like he always had the perfect Facebook ads for the vacations that he would plan. He truthfully spoiled us with the impulsive trips that he took us on. From yearly trips to watching the Rangers play and going to Six Flags in Dallas, to farmers markets and beer tasting festivals on a Saturday, to taking us to see Casey Musgraves before she blew up in Victoria. All he wanted to do was enjoy himself with his loved ones around, and there were no ends he wouldn't go to put a smile on your face. My dad was not only a good time enthusiast, he was also a huge fan of music. He loved all kinds of music. Growing up, we listened to all sorts of genres like rock, hip-hop, pop, country, and alternative. It wasn't until around COVID that he made it clear that he had a favorite genre. Texas country had stuck with me and my dad and had buried itself into his heart. Names like Co Wetzel, Parker McCollum, Whiskey Myers, and Cody Jinks were household names around the house where he would listen to it on his speaker, laying in his recliner. That way everyone else could hear it. Our Saturday nights were spent at different venues around the state, watching Texas country bands and drinking cold beer. So many of our memories stem from his love for music. My dad's personality made him one of a kind. If you ask my mom, she'd tell you that he never acted his age. And yes, it's funny, and yes, it's partially true, but I think it played right into who he was. However, she'll tell you that he didn't act his age and he acted like a child. And yes, he did, and he was great with children, and they would giggle at any little thing that he did. He knew how to entertain them and feed into their delusion, or how to care for them and hold them until they fall asleep in his arms. He loved kids, and it seemed like he could be most like himself when he was around them. On the other end, my dad had a much more wise and sophisticated approach, as if he was much older than he already was. And I'm sure most of my close friends, rather than not, have seen this side of my father, and I like to call these J. Remy speeches. And I can guarantee you anyone who's received one can attest that it was exactly what they needed at that time in their life. He had some of the best advice and was always ready to talk about the deeper things if you needed to talk. He was a problem solver, and he never wanted to see his people struggle, so he would help in whatever means that he could. Out of all the qualities my dad had, there was easily one that stood out on top as my favorite, and that was his humor. He was so creative because he was able to do so many voices and make so many funny faces. He was quick-witted, yet predictable. But it didn't matter because the jokes still hit every time. And I can't express to you how many times we've wiped tears from our eyes in the living room from laughing so much as a family. Thank God his humor and comedian skills were passed down to Madison and I because someone needs to relay his jokes from heaven. If you found yourself around Jeremy, you probably found yourself laughing more times than not. Jeremy Lejeune was a lot of things: a father, a son, an uncle, a brother, and a friend to many. But I find there is no stronger bond than a father and son. You were my best friend, and throughout my whole childhood, you were with me for everything. For the majority of my life, our world revolved around baseball. It started with throwing in the backyard to playing Little League All-Stars, to waffle tacos at 9 a.m. and Del Taco before practice. He was there for it all. My first home run, my college visits, my senior year that got cut short, the training between it all, my first college games, and ultimately the last thing my dad did was watch me play. It was what he loved to do most, watching Madison and I play. I know for sure I wouldn't be the ball player, and most certainly the man I am today, if it weren't for everything my dad did for me. As I grew up, our relationship became a whole lot more than just baseball. Music was big for us. We found ourselves singing on the road everywhere that we went, sharing new music to each other while I was at college that we thought the other would like. Going to concerts and seeing some of our favorite artists together will remain as some of my favorite memories. My dad was a huge fan of the UFC ever since the company was founded, but I didn't start watching until around COVID time. Once we created that bond, it was rare if either one of us ever missed an event. When I moved to college, my dad and I would text each other during fights with our live reactions. Oh! Did you see that? A lot of crazy reactions over message. Thanks to my dad's debit card and his kindness, of course, my friends and I were able to watch the pay-per-views, creating memories over the course of 3 years. In our time together, we even got to go to a live event in Austin, in which the event tied the record for the most finishes in a card. The UFC and MMA was a second language to the two of us. Lastly, one of the big things that we bonded over was fishing. Once again, this hobby of ours didn't start up until around COVID, when we had a lot of free time and we were told to socially distance. So we took our socially distance to the river. Other than out fishing you most of our ventures, my favorite moment of us fishing was you catching your personal best largemouth on a Slim Jim. 1, I didn't know largemouth bass liked Slim Jims. And 2, my dad was so excited, he actually smiled in a picture with it. He didn't like to smile in pictures, but don't let that fool you. He was incredibly happy. He had a family he loved more than anything. He ate a multitude of foods and tried so many different beers. He got to watch his Astros, Tigers, and Saints all win championships. I will forever miss your jokes, your wisdom, your kindness, and your presence in general. I'm not only blessed to call you my father, but my best friend. I love you more than words can express, and until we meet again, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for coming today. It really means a lot. I think it's a universal experience to, at some point in your life, say you will never end up like your parents. Yet it seems like no matter how hard we try, we always do. Truthfully, the past year, I've found it hard to look at pictures or relive any memories of my dad. Like if I let myself think, then I let myself feel, and it's all felt like too much. And while it still feels like that today, I want to take this time to reflect on the person my dad was. My dad was certain. My parents met when my dad came to clean my mom's carpet. He made sure she would have to see him again by accidentally leaving his cleaning supplies at her house. They say when you know, and my dad knew. He was certain my mom was the one for him. So certain, in fact, he told my grandma on their second date that he was going to marry her. And a year to the day that they met, he did just that. My dad was supportive. I watched the Little League World Series on the TV when I was 12, and it changed my life. I want to play baseball, I said to my dad. My wish was his command, and he took me straight to softball tryouts. I had no idea that those were two different sports, and once the prospect of hanging out with boys was off the table, I kind of lost interest in the whole idea. But he made me stay for the tryout. He would roll me ground balls in the backyard, and he'd hold up his glove, and I would throw the ball back to him. And I'd watch as my ball just like barely went over the top of his glove because he wouldn't move it, and he'd go get it. While I may have started late, he did everything he could to make sure I caught up. I never really learned how to hit worth a shit, but I could field, and my dad absolutely loved when the other softball dads started calling me Hoover in the outfield. My dad would always tell anyone that would listen that I was the best fielder in all of San Antonio, which wasn't true, but it was nice. I ended up playing in college at a JUCO 3.5 hours away from home, and he would drive the whole way just to watch me ride the bench. He didn't care. He was just happy to cheer on Team Lejeune. My dad was a story repeater. There were a lot of things he didn't like. At the top of that list was crunchy peanut butter. When he was a kid, he sat across from a girl named Toni Morosco at lunch. She brought a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to eat, crunchy peanut butter, but instead of putting it in her mouth, she pulled the peanut out and stuck it right up her nose. It grossed him out so much, he spit on her. He would always gag as he retold the tale. He told it so much, I started to think it was my own memory. But no matter how many times he told it, I never got tired of hearing it. My dad was true to his roots. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm crying at this part. This part isn't even sad. My dad was true to his roots. Even though he wasn't born there, he was a Louisiana boy through and through. He would make us leave the house at 5 a.m. sharp every time we took a trip to see my papa. He just couldn't wait to get there. As we'd cross over the bridge leading into Louisiana, he'd blast Call in Baton Rouge. He sat a little taller and smiled a little bigger the rest of the drive, knowing that he was home. He passed his love of all things Cajun on to me. It's because of him I know how good a Daryl's po' boy is, that crawfish is meant to be dipped in cane sauce, and that you should never taunt a mama gator. If you want to know about that story, come talk to me. My dad was hilarious, generous, thoughtful, brave. He was everything a husband, father, brother, son, and friend should be. Simply put, my dad was the best. Thinking back on it now, I can't remember why I would have ever thought I didn't want to end up just like him. If I turn out to be even half the person my dad was, I will have turned out all right. As we leave here today, I encourage you all to live a little bit more like Jeremy, always with a koozie in your pocket. Cheers.
I'm Johanna. I'm sorry. Got you. I'm the last person that Jeremy got to work with. I'm the one that got to hire him when he was a contingent worker. And I remember in the interview, within the first 5 minutes, I was like, I got to hire this guy just the way he was. And I remember I asked him a question about, why are you wanting to come back to BSA? And he said, I got 2 kids and they're expensive as hell. That's literally what he said in the interview, and I was like, you're hired. At work, Jeremy was more than just a coworker. He was a mentor, a friend, and someone who always made a difference. He had a way of just making everyone feel and seem valued, even though he did not like people. He always had a listening ear and a heart that cared very deeply, even if he tried to act like he was a Billy Badass. Jeremy was my soundboard at work. He was my reality check, and sometimes the only person who could talk me down. I miss hearing him say, kid, you have got to stop working, or kid, go home.
He knew I would stay late, and he would make sure he would stay 1 minute later than me. I was also the person that made Jeremy do public speaking, and he hated me for that. I remember the first time it was going to be his meeting, and he said, "I'm not doing this." And I said, "Yes, you are, because I'm your boss." And he said, "Nope." Later that night, he texted me and said, "I quit." And I said, "See you tomorrow, Jeremy." And sure enough, he did those meetings every single month. And every time he hated them, even more. But every time after the meeting, he'd be like, "Wasn't really that bad?" And I would say, "Duh." And there were times when I thought about quitting, because I said, this isn't for me, I'm too young. And he would say, "Kid, you just need to realize that you're good at what you do, but if you quit, we quit." I remember when I had actually turned in my resignation, Jeremy was the first person I told, and he was still a contractor. I said, "I'm quitting. I'm giving them a month." And he said, "I'm giving them a day." And he said, "Let's go work at Walmart," because we always talked about Walmart and how if you could be like a district manager and you had a really good store, you can make a lot of money. Because every time I'd make him come into the office, he would stop at Walmart in the morning to get a new pearl button-down shirt or just something random. He would always bring me pink Starburst because I loved pink Starburst. But yeah, he was just one of those people where it didn't matter. Even if you did something wrong, like his family said, he never judged you. He would secretly judge you on the side and then tell you about it, but he would let you do what you wanted to do. I miss our talks in the morning. Every Monday, we'd have a talk first thing in the morning. My sister is Madison, and we called it, "What did your Madison do over the weekend?" And he would tell me everything Madison did, and then I would tell him everything my Madison did. And then we would talk about Austin, and he would always tell me, "That kid's gonna make me go broke." And I said, "Well, good thing I won't fire you, so you'll always have money." He always bragged about how he had a sugar mama because Andrea made all the money and he never had to work. And every time he would come into the office, he would always stop at the ATM to take out a wad of cash to put it in his wallet. And then he would complain to me because the bills weren't in order, and because I knew the guy who owned the ATM machines, he wanted me to tell them that they need to properly put the bills in correctly. I miss our concerts. We had a list of concerts that we wanted to go to. I miss our Chewy's happy hours. It was always him, Andrea, and myself. Sometimes my Madison would come because she wanted a free meal. Yeah. I remember we both had gone to the Wetzel concert, but he was there with Austin and I was there with my Madison. And I was too cheap to buy the VIP packages, and it was freezing cold. And he was like, "You could come over here." And I was like, "No, I did not buy that. I'm going to stay in the general admission." They ran out of beer, and we had ran into each other in line trying to get some more to drink. Completely cold, and Jeremy had like all of these koozies, and he was like, "Did you go get another koozie?" And I was like, "I got a koozie." I even loved when he would come to work because we always went to Whataburger. That was our place. We'd go to Whataburger, he'd get spicy ketchup. One day we had a french fry potluck, just french fries. I went to Whataburger and I ordered like 3 trays of the large french fries and 2 big bags of spicy ketchup. And I made him take it home. I miss parking my truck next to him in the parking garage because my truck is way bigger than his and he hated it. And I would make sure he knew that I parked next to him because he would get there early and I was always a minute late. And he thought if he'd get there early that he could like avoid me parking next to him. But I knew everybody at the work, so I'd make them move their truck so I could park right next to him. Jeremy loved his family, and he would do anything for them. He always talked about them at work and how great you guys were. We'd watch the baseball games. When it was your game, he'd have it on his phone watching it, and all of us would be watching it with him. We knew about all of Maddie's love life. And surprisingly, Jeremy was very up to date on Love Island. He told everybody about what happened because that's what him and Madison watched when he was sitting in his recliner. So all of us then too had to watch Love Island. If you were lucky enough to have known Jeremy and he was lucky enough to have let you in, you were able to build a real relationship with him. He was a very special person. And I could consider myself one of the lucky ones because I got to share a special place with him. And he will always be a special place in my heart. And even Andrea and Austin and Madison, even though I never met you two, I feel like I've known you guys for such a long time. I always thought it was a compliment because Jeremy would tell me I'm the female version of him, just much younger. And I hope he's upstairs looking down, laughing at us, crying over him for being a bunch of wussies and saying, shit, you guys just need to have a shot.
Okay, thank you guys for making me laugh. I know that Jeremy was so loved, and I sincerely, on behalf of my family, I would really just want to thank you all for coming today. It does our hearts so much good to know that he was so loved, and you all took the time out of your weekend to come today. I think we're pretty much done with people who had planned to speak. We do still have a little more time. I know public speaking, not everybody's thing, but if you are brave enough and you would like to share a story, certainly feel free to come up and share. And if we don't have any more stories, I do hope that you took advantage of the beer and the sodas and the food. It's all Jeremy's favorite stuff. So all I can say is just thank you guys so much. So if anybody does want to speak, feel free to make your way to the front. Otherwise, I hope you just talk to each other and share about Jeremy. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rudy. I'm a good friend of Austin. I've known him for a while. We played baseball together. As I'm walking up here, I was thinking I am completely underqualified to have a speech about anything to do with Jeremy. Growing up, I didn't know him very well. He was at every single baseball game. He was always present. He was always there. And to me, he was always just my dad's friend. I do have one solid memory from baseball where he drove us to Taco Bell or Taco Cabana. And my dad always listened to country music, and I got a little tired of it. I was at that age where I started venturing into different genres. And Jeremy, to everyone, he was that cool dad. He was Jay Remy. So this was kind of my first time really hanging out with him. I was in the car with him in Austin, and he plays Travis Scott, and I'm thinking, okay, that's different. I remember the song. It was Apple Pie, so I'm going to sing it for y'all. I'm not going to sing it. I'm terrible at singing. But that's when I saw it. That's when I realized how great of a guy he was. I saw what everyone else saw. I was still at that point in my life where I was shy. I didn't really get to know anyone, but some years had passed. I got my own driver's license, and Austin was playing college ball. I drove up to Dallas to watch him play, and I'm sitting in the bleachers with Austin's parents, and I asked Jeremy, how are you doing? I wanted to get to know him because, like I said, he was the cool dad. Everyone always loved Jay Remy. So I had to get to know this guy. And no matter what question I asked about him or how he was doing or what he was doing in life, the conversation led to his kids. He was proud of them. I just remember sitting there hearing him talk about how proud he was of Austin and all of his accomplishments. I don't think Austin had to do a single thing and he would have been proud, but he was, man. He was proud of you. You're blessed. You were to have a dad like that. He was a great man. And again, I saw what everyone else saw because he was Jay Remy. So he's still here, he's still with us, and he always will be. So if y'all still have a little bit of liquid left, to Jay Remy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Donna. I'm Andrea's mom. She told you about how she met Jeremy, and it's true. I needed my carpets cleaned in my house. So he shows up. I'm at work, and he shows up. He cleans the carpets, and he deliberately left behind some supplies, so he had to come back. And the first time I met Jeremy, I hung out with my friends at this little bar, and they had 99-cent margarita night. So Jeremy, Andra, and I, and one of Andra's friends, Jennifer, went. So Jennifer and Andra decide to go to the ladies' room, and Jeremy looked at me and he says, "I'm going to marry your daughter." And I looked at him, I said, "Does she know that?" He goes, he goes, "Not yet, but she will." So that I take credit for Andrea and Jeremy meeting. Okay? Andrea and Jeremy, I took a couple of trips to Fredericksburg, walked the whole street, stopped at this one little bar where you got this little wooden tray. I think it had 9 different beers in it. And my tray, I only liked the peach. So Jeremy had his 9 and my 8. We went to a concert with Brad Paisley at the Blue Bonnet. Remember the outdoor? Okay, but my fondest memory was the concert we went to Riley Green. Like, Jeremy was high class, okay? We had a private table with the private bartender right in front of Riley Green. It was so wonderful. It was so much fun, but it was really cold. It was really cold. So I just want to say that I could have not picked a better son-in-law, husband, and father for his family if I had tried. So I take full credit for dirty carpets.
My name's Jimmer. It's hard. J. Remy was a brother. I got the call from Austin. We cried on the phone. And then he asked me to talk today. I said I can't. But I will. I wrote something down, but I don't know what it is. I'm just going to talk from the heart. J. Remy loved my kid like his own. I met him when he was at practice with Austin. We got there. He was on the side by himself. I said, "Well, who's this loner? I'm going to have to go talk to him because he's about the same personality as me." We hit it off right off the bat. I said, "Who's your son?" He goes, "That kid over there." I said, "Oh, shit, he's talking to my kid." So Austin and Dalton got to be good friends. We were at games. We would go together. And what the folks had said before me is all true, because he would say he had a sugar mama. He would say that his kids were the best. He did all that. We would sit in the vehicle waiting for the game start. He would play rap music and he would sing. And I did not understand him at all. I love that man. He was like a brother to me. We would be at baseball games. I mean, that's all we did was baseball. We would be at baseball games. He would yell out, "Let's go D1." And there was a coach that came from a school to recruit some of our players, and he would say, "Is that your son?" He goes, "No, that's his son." So he loved everybody on that team. Coach Pete, you put a great team together. I don't have a whole lot to say. I just wanted to say, I love you, my brother.
Howdy. I've done this before. My name's Andy. I'm Jeremy's father-in-law. We all have a lot of good stories to tell about Jeremy. From his kids, watching the sports, from Andrea, the hard worker that he was, the family man that he was. We did a lot of barbecues, had a few beverages. But I think one of the best times that we had was when Andrew and Jeremy and Lynn and I lived in Elmendorf. Jeremy and I were both unemployed for a little while, just a little while. So we got together, we check each other's resumes, and we apply. We do applications online for about 4 hours from like 8 to 12. And we did that Monday through Friday, every week for however many weeks it was. And it was a few. And at 12 o'clock, we played Tiger Woods golf on the computer. And you could see us, the computer was in the bedroom, so we'd be sitting down with my dog, Santana. He's a golden retriever, and he'd be watching us. He didn't want to play. And we're going like this with the mouse, to hit our balls on the computer. And as the afternoon wore off, if I had some liquor in the house, we drank what we had. We had... Yeah, if I know. It was just a little bit. So we had some beer, we had some bourbon, we had some rum. And when we drank all that, after a few weeks, I had some tequila. I'm not a tequila drinker. But we mixed the tequila with Kool-Aid. It was awesome. It really was. So after all this time of being unemployed, our two bosses came home and told us that if we didn't get off our asses and find a job, that they were leaving. And sure enough, we both found jobs. Jeremy ended up finding a job as a bank manager, I think, in down south. Okay, anyway, he found a job. So I was fortunate enough to find a job as well, working at the workforce office downtown. And although he worked with a lot of good customers in the bank, I remember he worked in a bank, I ended up working with people with felony criminal records, which, believe it or not, I still do. But all these things about Jeremy are true. He would talk about his dad, Terry, his mom, Jeannie, John and Ellis, all his family in Louisiana, his brother, Justin. Oh, what a relationship you guys had. I love him. I miss him.
Okay, well, thank you guys all so much for sharing. We have come to the end of our time, so I'm probably going to kick us out. So feel free to reach out to Madison, to Austin, or to me if you've got stories. We would love to hear them anytime. Just reach out. I want to thank you again for coming today. I hope you had a good time. I hope you got to laugh a little bit. I know there were a few tears, but they're good tears. Jeremy was a good man. We all miss him. And I thank you for coming today to honor him. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks.